Neskantaga has begun evacuating some residents after its nursing station was forced to close. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Neskantaga First Nation is under a state of emergency and has begun evacuating its most vulnerable citizens. This after flooding forced the closure of its nursing station. The water was discovered on Sunday and the closure and state of emergency were triggered that same day. Neskantaga's chief and council began evacuating vulnerable members this afternoon. The community is asking for a mobile health center to be deployed by Indigenous Services Canada. Former Chief Wayne Muñez says there is a temporary space available for some of the community's health needs, but it isn't suitable for any serious procedures.
It's just a small room, an 8 by 10 room, where the nurse is able to assess some people, but there is no things that you would need to do after that. So basically, that's why the chief and the community is asking for a mobile healthcare center.
We are in desperate need for our people's health. You know, any time emergencies comes up, just like in urban areas, and that goes for our small community, because we do have lots of people that are sick.
Community leaders say once a temporary facility is set up, the evacuees can begin to return home. 20-year-old Daniel Keefe was sentenced to life in prison today without eligibility for parole for 10 years. The sentence was handed down at the Thunder Bay Courthouse after Keefe was found guilty in February of second-degree murder. The victim, 19-year-old Aidan Cunningham, died in June of 2022 after the two got into an altercation inside the door of Keefe's Crown Street home, and Cunningham suffered a fatal stab wound to the heart. Members of his family presented victim impact statements in court last month. Keefe also spoke, saying he regrets everything that happened that day. A second-degree murder conviction carries an automatic life sentence. The Crown and defense both requested the minimum 10 years for Keefe to be eligible for parole, and the judge agreed. But Keefe could spend just 6 more years in prison if the parole board takes the time he's already served into consideration. Thunder Bay Police have charged 4 people with drug trafficking after seizing more than $100,000 worth of cocaine, fentanyl, and oxycodone from a North Cumberland Street home yesterday afternoon. Police also found more than $15,000 in cash. A 42-year-old from Hamilton and 3 people from Thunder Bay, aged 53, 54, and 33, were arrested inside the home. They appeared in court this morning and remain in custody. The Thunder Bay District Injured Workers Support Group protested against the Ford government today. Last week, the Premier announced that WSIB will return $2 billion to businesses across Ontario, in addition to another $2 billion that had already been announced. Those on the picket line at MPP Kevin Holland's office say that money should have been used to support injured workers instead. Jaden Billick reports.
And we're not going to stand for them stealing our money any longer. Thank you so much for everyone joining us today.
On April 7th, Premier Doug Ford announced that another $2 billion is being taken out of the WSIB Accident Fund, which is collected for workers injured on the job sites. The surplus money is being distributed to safe employers as a rebate. The move prompted these picketers to voice their opinions in front of MPP Kevin Holland's office. The treasurer of the Thunder Bay District Injured Workers Support Group says 92% of all claims for mental health and disability are denied compensation.
So here we are, we're living in poverty, we're being denied, and instead of paying us what's our due, they're saying, no, we're going to give it to corporations. So this $2 billion announcement last week is on top of another $2.5 billion that they were giving away in the month of March.
Mantis adds some of the folks here are representatives from healthcare and education services, which both have increasing rates of injuries and disabilities due to underfunding and understaffing. President of the Injured Workers Group, Eugene Lefrancois, feels there's no justice for injured workers and says those who have been injured on the job site have to fight for a long time before they see any support.
Regardless of how it happened, you got hurt, now you're thrown into, as I say, the heaping pile of humanity. If you call that support, that's great. But you need help now. You don't need help after your appeal 5 years from now. You need it now. And WSIB doesn't see it that way. So they're giving, we injured workers are subsidizing employers.
Some of the demands these people want to be met include ending the practice of deeming, listen to healthcare teams, increase the loss of earnings benefits by 90%, end discrimination against workplace mental health injuries, and improve occupational disease reforms.
We're all one injury away from being homeless or, in some sort of, tragic situation. And this group here, Thunder Bay Injured Workers and the Ontario Injured Workers Group, they stand up and they fight back for Ontarians and people that are suffering. And they're here to advocate, and we should, I'm just glad to be here to support them and doing what they can for the people of Ontario.
Kevin Holland was at Queen's Park and was not available for comment. Jaden Billick, TBT News.
Ontario has signed a deal with New Brunswick and Nova Scotia to break down interprovincial barriers to trade and labor mobility. The agreement aims to boost Canada's economy and GDP in the wake of the damaging Trump tariffs. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the details.
First with Nova Scotia, then with New Brunswick. Ontario has signed memorandums of understanding with the two Atlantic provinces to free up the flow of goods and people, a response to the challenge of U.S. tariffs.
Here's an opportunity that will bring prosperity and growth.
Ontario has also tabled legislation to that effect.
Ontario automatically allows goods and services from another province to be sold right here in Ontario,
so long as that province or territory treats Ontario the same. That includes allowing people to buy booze from another province directly, though a sales model still has to be worked out and there's no timeline.
I know there's some fantastic wines from Niagara that the folks in New Brunswick would love to have.
There's a move to immediately recognize credentials to allow people to get to work right away. Everyone from electricians to truck drivers to dental hygienists. And Doug Ford wants to look at getting doctors and nurses from the United States on the front lines of the province's healthcare system.
people who are fed up with how President Trump is governing to come and work here in Ontario.
He says it's time to eliminate unnecessary barriers.
You know, first aid kit might be different in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and it's different in Ontario. I think there was another one with tire pressure or tires on transport trucks. We need to standardize it.
The opposition wants to make sure cutting red tape doesn't come at the price of safety.
We are looking to raise the bar, protect those standards, not have a race to the bottom.
That was CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. Well, we now continue our profiles of the election candidates looking to win the seat in Thunder Bay Rainy River. Brendan Hyatt is making his first attempt at federal politics. The longtime educator lives in Devlin near Fort Frances and says his strong connections across the riding would serve him well in Ottawa. Jonathan Wilson has tonight's candidate profile.
Brendan Hyatt spent over 30 years in the education field as a teacher, principal, and superintendent, and then as the Director of Education with the Northwest Catholic District School Board from 2001 until his retirement in 2022. Hyatt tried his hand at politics that same year and was elected to council in La Valley Township. He's currently the deputy mayor, but took a leave to run federally for the Conservative Party.
I've talked to a lot of people over the last 18 months looking at actually running, and one thing that I'm hearing over and over again in our area is that people are really having struggles with the cost of living, with affordability, and that, you know what, they need a voice that actually speaks for them when in Ottawa, and they're not feeling like they've got that right now. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring because I think I can be that voice, and I think I'm uniquely positioned to do that.
Although Hyatt enters the race from the Rainy River side of the vast riding, he says he has plenty of family, friends, and colleagues in the Thunder Bay area, providing him with contacts and connections for the role he's hoping to take on. Hyatt says people on both sides of the riding have told him what's the main issue to focus on.
Well, my main priority is to help people. Like I said, people are struggling with the cost of living, and we need to actually put in place some things that help them with that. Affordability for buying houses, affordability with regards to groceries. We shouldn't be struggling if we're actually out there helping our citizens, and I think that that's going to be our priority to help make people's lives better.
When asked what sets him apart from the other riding candidates, Hyatt points to his decades of experience in education, specifically in dealing with tight budgets.
Being a director of education and also looking at the role of Deputy Reeve, one of the things that I have to be sure about is actually budgets. So I've got a lot of experience with budgets, but the thing is the budgets that I dealt with, they're the public purse. I couldn't run deficits, so I had to learn how to stretch a dollar while still meeting the needs of the public. And I think that's important. It sets me apart because I've done that for more than 20 years of my life, and it gives me a unique opportunity to take those skill sets to Ottawa, stretch the Canadian dollars in the public purse while still meeting the needs of all the people in our riding.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Tomorrow we'll meet Eric Arner, the Green Party candidate in Thunder Bay Rainy River. The lawyer for Anishinaabe Nation Deputy Grand Chief Bobby Narcisse has released a statement defending his client's actions. This after a third-party investigation was announced earlier this month regarding alleged violations of NAN's Executive Code of Conduct. Narcisse has been a deputy chief with NAN since 2021. A confidential letter from Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler to the NAN chiefs confirmed that the Executive Council ordered the independent investigation. Narcisse's lawyer, Doug Judson, issued a statement this week saying, quote, "Our client denies that any of the allegations made against him have any merit or amount to more than a political attack orchestrated to sideline him and silence his sincere concern for the proper, accountable, and transparent governance of NAN." Narcisse is currently barred from NAN offices, but he can continue working virtually with pay as he's entitled to due process. Judson says Narcisse has nothing to hide and he intends to fully cooperate with any fair, independent investigation. The Ontario Energy Board has approved a rate hike for Synergy North. Electricity rates for residential customers in Thunder Bay will go up about 3.6% on May 1st, or by $4.54 for the average home's monthly bill. Local small business customers will see their rates go up 3.3%. A Synergy North spokesperson says the change was calculated using a formula that's tied largely to inflation. Now that City Council has approved zoning amendments for a new retail warehouse and gas bar on Central Avenue at Golf Links Road, the property developers say they can now move on to the next phase. There's been a lot of speculation that the facility is a long-awaited Costco. However, Forum Properties President Toby Singlehurst says they won't be able to confirm who the applicant is until further in the process.
The applicant does not want to promise anything until they can. And so it's not that they're trying to be sneaky or anything like that. It's just that they really don't want to overpromise. On the moment that they can say definitively, we know that this will be an XYZ company and will be there on a certain date, and they will let the public know.
Singlehurst says he heard all the comments from nearby residents during Monday night's meeting and will take their traffic and environmental concerns into account when Forum Properties moves on to its next steps. Those include a site plan control process and a feasibility study to consider the full cost of the project. The company will also revisit previous consultants' reports. Singlehurst says at the moment they're not able to provide an accurate timeline for construction.
All of these things take quite a bit of time, and until those things are actually fully known and fully acceptable to every party, then you don't know the timeline when it'll go forward. But our hope very much is that we would see approvals this year, and we would see commencement of construction next year. That would be a normal path.
Let's turn to the weather now. It was a much nicer day out there today than it was yesterday, Fiona. That wind had died down and that sun was great too.
Yeah, it was a very sunny day. In fact, most of northwestern Ontario got a really nice sunny day, and some areas actually hit double digits. Thunder Bay, not one of them. Remember, our goal for this time of year is a high of 10. That would be normal. We're still not quite normal, as many would say about me on a regular basis, but partly sunny skies. Winds much, much lighter from the southeast, started out around 8 kilometers an hour. Just in the last couple of hours, we've seen a few gusty periods up to 35 km, but all in all, not a bad day. We started out with a low of -7 and wind chills of -11, which is also a few degrees below normal. So it has been a cool night. but we are starting to warm up. In other parts of the region, well, to the west, both Red Lake and Fort Frances topped out at 12 Celsius just a couple of hours ago. Red Lake under mostly cloudy skies, but loads of sunshine as you head south into Dryden and Fort Frances. That was after an overnight low of -6, so quite a nice warm up. As you head further eastward, it's definitely quite a bit cooler, just 3 Celsius in Greenstone, 5 in Armstrong, and along the north and eastern shores of Lake Superior, they're just slightly above freezing. But you have to keep it in context. Greenstone actually started out with wind chills of -18 at 7 a.m. this morning. So to be on the plus side at all is a beautiful thing. Sault Ste. Marie just at 2 with a fair amount of sunshine. Temperatures haven't really moved much there. They had an overnight low of -2, topped out at 3, and with winds from the north at about 45 kilometers per hour, they're kind of experiencing what Thunder Bay felt yesterday, just with slightly less wind. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, though, tonight we are going to see a much milder overnight low under clear skies, -4 and a wind chill of -8 with winds very light, continuing to be from the southeast, around 10 kilometers per hour under those clear skies. Now, we're in the countdown to the long weekend. That starts on Friday. And as we look at what we're going to be seeing for the next 4 days or so, including tomorrow, we've got a little bit of everything going on. Now, temperatures are going to continue to be slightly cool up to seasonal values. We're not going to see highs in the teens in Thunder Bay. In fact, many areas will be just slightly below seasonal. We'll also see possibly sun, cloud, periods of rain, and possibly even periods of snow. So it's your typical spring weekend. Anything can happen and everything will happen. We just have to, again, get through April. That's that period of change where the meteorologists really have to work very hard to give us their forecasts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's supposed to be April showers bring May flowers.
We're getting rain
I don't know that there's
and snow and wind.
That doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nicely,
No,
but
it
we'll have
doesn't.
to fight our way through it. Thanks a lot, Fiona.